I'd like to start this off by saying that yes, this video project is late, but it's near impossible to get this kind of project done when you're sick. Anyways, I'd like to introduce my Australian friend who will be doing some of the voiceover in this project.
Hi, my name's Jake. I know Samantha through online interactions, and I will be helping with this project today.
So, without further ado, the Japanese invasion of the Philippines. The Japanese invasion of the Philippines occurred on December 8, 1941. This happened about 10 hours after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. The invasion lasted until May 8, 1942, but this led straight into the Japanese occupation of the Philippines, which lasted until July 5, 1945. The countries involved with the invasion were the Philippines, the United States, and Japan. At the time, the Philippine Islands had been United States territory since the 1898 Treaty of Paris. The United States was put in charge of the Philippine government as to prevent an Axis power such as Germany or Japan from gaining access to it. Due to its strategic location and its importance, Army General MacArthur was brought back into service by President Franklin Roosevelt and was given $10 million and 100 B-17 Flying Fortress bombers for defense. On November 9, 1941, General George Marshall declared,
The greatest concentration of heavy bomber strength anywhere in the world are also gathered in the Philippine Islands, ready to not only counterattack any attacks on the islands, but to also strike at the Japanese home islands and set the paper cities of Japan on fire.
Marshall may have been the organizer of victory as he served as both the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, but he was very wrong in his declaration, as Japan invaded only a month later. General MacArthur, on the other hand, felt that this attack was going to happen in late November of 1941. However, he thought that this was going to come in the spring of 1942, so you could imagine his shock as the Japanese landed in the exact places he had imagined on December 8, 1941.
MacArthur was able to regain his composure and ordered the troops to resist the landing sites, but General Johnson would mark this as MacArthur's tragic error.
Over 4,000 Japanese troops had captured key cities, bases, and ships. The American Filipino troops retreated again and again, with brilliant maneuvers by General Jonathan Wainwright, which delayed the advancing troops. The soldiers fought valiantly, but General Edward King Jr. surrendered his 75,000 troops on April 9, 1942, on the Bataan Peninsula. Thus, the Bataan Death March began, where approximately 75,000 Filipino and American troops were forced to march 65 miles up the peninsula to prison camps, as they were now prisoners of war. No one is sure exactly how many people died during the invasion. The estimation is anywhere between 30,000 and 50,000 deaths. Then, by May 12, 1942, the rest of the troops surrendered the Philippine Islands, and Japan had reached their goal of expanding across the Pacific theater. The United States' fear came true as they lost control of the islands to the Axis power of Japan. The Japanese invasion of the Philippines honestly didn't change that much about the war, other than how we perceive certain countries now. Since it was at the beginning of the war, it was the first exposure to the way Japan devalued those who surrendered. Along with the brutality of the Death March, it shaped America's view of how the war should be fought. The invasion could even be argued to be the spark that contributed to the decision to make America drop the atomic bomb, as a sort of revenge for Bataan and Nanking and to save Americans from soldiers who would keep fighting until every last person were dead. And that's the Japanese invasion of the Philippines.
I know you may be wondering, wow, what's the point of introducing this Jake guy? He literally said 3 lines throughout this entire project. Well, this is due to the fact I recently lost my voice, and Samantha was kind enough to cut my lines down by like 80% in order to not strain my voice. I thank her dearly for that. Yeah, it was a pleasure helping for what little help I did offer. But I now must be off to go ride my kangaroo to school and throw boomerangs at drop bears.